Good morning and welcome to another Daily Devotions with Pastor Joe. I am Pastor Joe, and we're going to continue our study in the book of Romans with chapter 6, verse 1 through 7. What shall we say then? Shall we continue in sin that grace may abound? God forbid. How shall we that are dead to sin live any longer therein? Know ye not that so many of us as were baptized into Jesus Christ were baptized into his death? Therefore we are buried with him by baptism into death, that, like as Christ was raised up from the dead by the glory of the Father, even so we also should walk in newness of life. For if we have planted together in the likeness of his death, we shall also in the likeness of his resurrection. Knowing this, that our old man is crucified with him, that the body of sin might be destroyed, and henceforth we should not serve sin. For he that is dead is freed from sin. I love the literary expression of Paul here. He's just a master of words sometimes. What shall we say? Shall we continue in sin that grace may abound? Because the grace abounds because of sin, right? I mean, absolutely. Grace comes in and cleans sin, and it's wonderful. It's great. The grace of God has cleansed us from sin. Yeah, we can do it again and again, right? Right? Well, he says in verse 2, God forbid. Really, that word means in absolutely no wise, in no way, don't even think about it. It's not going to happen. You're not going to continue in sin that grace might abound. Really, although so many people in this day and age want to tell us that we'll sin in thought, word, and deed every day, so many people want to tell us that we can't live above sin. They say we have to live in sin and God will just make a work in us. And I've even heard somebody say that it's like every time you sin, it's God tying a knot and bringing you closer to him. And I'm sorry, but that's not true. It's not accurate. It's not biblically accurate. Look at the book of Romans right here. What shall we say? Should we continue in sin that grace may abound? No. No. There's no playing with this word, no. How shall we that are dead to sin live any longer in sin? Answer the question. Nobody can give an answer to that. How can we live in sin if we're dead to sin? Know ye not that we were baptized unto Jesus? That was sharing in his death. That was coming to that moment. Being baptized to Christ is like coming to that moment where you publicly make a proclamation that you're accepting Christ's offer, his free gift, that you're turning away from your sin and turning your back on it completely, and that you're going to live for Christ only, okay? So, baptized unto Jesus Christ, you're baptized into his death, and when you're raised up out of that water, you came up out of the water, you were raised like Christ was raised to newness of life, and so you should walk in newness of life. He says in verse 4, even so as Christ was raised up from the dead by the glory of the Father, even so we should walk in newness of life, a new life. When Christ said to Nicodemus that you had to be born again, he didn't mean physically, but he did mean spiritually, that you were going to be a new person. That isn't just some symbolic garbage. It's truth. He said you're going to be born anew, born again, born as a new creature in creation in Christ. For if you've been planted with Christ, like in his death, then you also, in the likeness of his resurrection, will come up with him to live as he intends for you to live. Knowing this, our old man, that's the carnal nature, that's the flesh, as it's called in another place, that old man, that old sin nature inside is crucified with Christ, that the body of sin might be destroyed, and henceforth we should not serve sin, because if a dead man is free from sin, then you being spiritually dead to your old self and alive anew in Christ, you should be dead to sin, right? So it's just like that. I love the way Paul has this written. God forbid, don't live in sin any longer. If you're struggling with sins today, come to Christ and he will take them away. He will take away that awful sin, that old man inside of you, and he'll crucify him. I've heard the story that there was once a very young prince who had a beautiful castle. And in this castle, he had all sorts of great things, all sorts of beautiful, elegant items throughout his home. He had the best of the best paintings and sculptures and artwork throughout the halls of this beautiful palace. And the only problem was that he was sharing this palace with an old, cranky, mean-spirited uncle. And this old uncle would roam the halls in the middle of the night and break things and smash things and ruin them. He would go through the house screaming and causing all kinds of trouble and anger and pain. And one day, a king from a faraway land came and visited the prince at the prince's invitation. He invited the king in. And the king came in and said, "Okay, I like this. It's beautiful." And the prince said, "I want you to live with me." Now, mind you, the king is representing Jesus here in this story, being invited to live into the palace of our lives. Well, the king agreed and said, "We've got to clean this place up. We can't have all of this mess." And so they went through room by room and cleaned up every room of the life of this young prince. Well, they came to the last room of the house, and he said, I don't think we should go in there. That's my uncle's room, and he's the one who caused all this trouble to begin with. Well, the king said, "Well, we've got to go in there. We've got to clean everything up, or I can't live with you." He said, "Well, give me some time. Just let me talk to him, and we'll see what we can do." Well, the king tarried with him for a little while. But every day, as they were cleaning, they would turn around and find that the uncle had been behind their backs, causing more of a mess again, falling back into sin. And one day, the king said, "We've got to do something about this uncle of yours." And the prince says, "Okay, well, bind him up and lock him away, and just lock him in the cellar." So they do. They bind him in chains and ropes and locks, and they bind him as tight as they can, and they throw him in the cellar, in the prison. But down there, you can hear him screaming. You can hear him making all kinds of commotion and noise. You can hear all of this trouble that he's causing. And still, somehow, in the middle of the night, he's getting out, causing more mess. One day the king comes to the prince and says, "This is it. You've come to the point where either it's him or it's me. I'm not going to stay here and help you to fix everything, only for him to mess it up again. It's your choice." Well, of course, the prince says, "Okay, let's do it." And with the help of the king, of course, they execute the old man, the old carnal, sinful nature, and stop him from causing all of that mess in your life. If you find yourself struggling with sins that you are unable to stop, come to Christ. He's promised to put the old man to death, to crucify him, and to make you new. It's up to you today. God bless. I hope that you can find this to be a reality in your life, that you're living free from sin. Have a great day in the Lord.